Number 1. The Zodiac Killer. The Zodiac Killer was a notorious murderer whose primary goal was fame and to instill fear in the public. He was quite fond of playing puzzles and cat-and-mouse games with the police by sending cryptic letters to them and the media. These letters contained information that only the killer would know, alongside encoded messages that, if solved, would supposedly reveal his identity. Zodiac's first confirmed killings occurred in December 1968, when he took the lives of 2 individuals on Lake Herman Road in Benicia, California. Throughout the following year, he continued his killing spree, the target mostly young couples in secluded areas and often mocked the authorities. The Zodiac meticulously planned his murders to attract maximum attention. At the time, police were able to link him to 5 different murders. However, in one of his letters, Zodiac claimed to have 37 victims. Despite extensive investigations and hundreds of suspects, the police have yet to conclusively identify the Zodiac Killer, leaving the case unsolved to this day. Number 2. The Killer Clown. His real name is John Wayne Gacy, a real-life Joker version, but much more perverted. His main job was selling fried chicken. He managed a KFC franchise for his father-in-law. His side job was a magic clown. He often performed magic tricks to seduce young boys. He was later arrested and sentenced to 10 years in prison in 1968. But due to good behavior, he was released after 18 months. He went to Chicago to start a new life and was quite successful with his own construction company, remarried, and joined the political apparatus. But with his sick perversion, he decided to play the role of a clown and seduce young boys again. According to his testimony, his first victim was a homeless boy on the street. After taking him home and unsuccessfully seducing him, he killed the boy by accident. Next, from 1972 to 1978, Gacy lured at least 33 young men to his home and murdered them, most of whom were buried in the basement. His sickening thing was that he carefully recorded all his crimes in his diary and kept the victims' belongings as souvenirs. Other people's lives were like games to him. He would spare them if he liked them, or kill them without any reason. Everything only ended when the police investigated and found the victim's bones in his basement. In 1980, Gacy was sentenced to death for serial murder. Number 3. Ted Bundy. This guy is quite handsome, good at talking and likable, so it is quite easy to gain the trust of others. That is also the reason why his victims are mainly women, especially young girls. From 1974 to 1978, this guy committed more than 30 murders in different states of the United States. Because he built a friendly and kind image, absolutely no one suspected him. His method of killing people is often to pretend to be an injured person in need of help to approach the victim and kill them, then have sex with the corpse. Oh shit. Not only that, he also cut off the heads of at least 12 victims as trophies. After one time at a large outdoor event, because there were many witnesses, the police sketched the suspect's face along with the name Ted provided. This information was broadcast on TV, and his girlfriend felt suspicious because the day before she found a bunch of women's underwear and a hidden knife in the car, so she decided to report it to the police. But at this time, he was still not exposed because the police could not connect the crime details to Ted. Only once. When he was looking for prey in Colorado, he was arrested for not obeying the police's orders. Then he was put on the list of suspects because of the pile of things the police found in the car, such as ropes, handcuffs, masks, and so on. In the last trial in Florida, Ted decided to become his own lawyer because he had previously gone to law school, but he lost the argument and received a total of 3 death sentences. Number 4. Cannibal Jeffrey Dahmer. This murdered had a rough past. When he was young, his parents often argued. By the time he graduated from high school, his parents divorced. This likely contributed to his deep fear of abandonment and difficulty forming attachments to others. In addition, since he was a child, this guy had a hobby of dissecting animals and collecting their bones. Dahmer's first victim was a handsome young man named Steven, who he met at a rock festival. Dahmer invited Steven to his house for a beer and talked. He agreed, but he wasn't gay, so after drinking, Steven wanted to go home. Dahmer wanted to control and didn't want Steven to leave, so he killed him. This guy's perversion is shown in that after killing someone, he would dismember the victim and keep some parts, some to use as souvenirs, some to eat, and worse, some for twisted sexual purposes. He tried to drill into the victim's head to turn them into mindless puppets who would serve his desires. The number of his victims was 15 people, most of whom were young men of color, often African American or immigrants. Typically, a Laotian boy who was lucky to escape after being drilled into the head. The boy sought help from the police, but Dahmer managed to convince them that it was simply a misunderstanding and that the boy was his intoxicated boyfriend. Shockingly, the police returned the boy to Dahmer. In 1991, Dahmer was arrested and sentenced to life in prison, but was later beaten to death by another prisoner. Number 5. Plainfield's Butcher. His real name is Edward Theodore Gein, or Ed Gein. He also had a troubled childhood. He lived on his family's farm in the small town of Plainfield, Wisconsin. His father was an alcoholic, and his mother was abusive, often hitting him and never allowing him to go out except to attend school. She constantly filled his head with the belief that the world was evil and that all women were prostitutes. Despite this, Gein still adored his mother. After his mother died in 1945, Gein's mental state became worse. He began to spiral into madness and commit crimes. He decided to create a woman's suit made from human skin that resembled his mother. In 1957, while investigating the disappearance of several women, police searched Gein's home and made a horrifying discovery. Not only did they find clothing made from human skin, but also furniture and household items crafted from body parts. Among them, some items were made from 2 girls he had killed before. On November 21, 1957, Ed Gein was charged with first-degree murder but was found not guilty by reason of schizophrenia and mental incompetence. He was then confined to a mental hospital for the rest of his life. The case was so famous that it was later used as the inspiration for the horror film Texas Chainsaw. Number 6. Night Stalker. Richard Ramirez, also known as the Night Stalker, caused a series of murders in California around June 1984. His method of committing crimes was usually to break into the victim's house at night, he restrains, but instead of killing, he tortured and raped victim. After that, he performed some rituals to sacrifice the victim before killing them and leaving a satanic symbol at crime scene. It was quite clear that his purpose was not to kill people, but to torture the victims to satisfy his animalistic desires. The manhunt for Ramirez became one of the largest in California's history, involving over 200 detectives. Finally, in August 1985, Ramirez was recognized by a group of East Los Angeles residents who subdued and beat him before he was arrested. By this time, he had committed 13 murders, 11 sexual assaults, and 14 burglaries. During his trial in July 1988, Ramirez showed no remorse. When reporters passed by, he raised his hand to reveal the satanic symbol inside. He was sentenced to death but died in prison in 2013 before his execution could be carried out. Number 7. Rotov Butcher. His name is Andrei Chikatilo, was born in the village of Yabluchne, Ukraine. In 1970, he became a Russian literature teacher at a school in Novoshakhtinsk. Over the span of 12 years, from 1978 to 1990, Chikatilo committed a horrifying series of murders and sexual assaults. He killed at least 53 people. Although he was arrested once, he was released after serving just 1 year due to a lack of evidence at the time. It was not until November 1990 that he was arrested and later sentenced to 42 death sentences for his brutal crimes, which included murder, rape, and even eating the flesh and blood of his victims. The reason for the delay of the police was that at that time, the investigative technology was not yet developed, and the victims were too widespread, ranging from 7 to 32 years old, regardless of gender. And that's all I have for this video. Thanks, and see you next time.